Council, due to the mayor and vice mayor being absent this evening, per City Code Section 2.04.150, order of business, I, the city clerk, must call this meeting to order and an acting mayor shall be selected to chair the meeting. At this time, I will turn it over to our city attorney, Bill Sims, to explain the process that will take place to appoint an acting mayor for tonight's meeting.
Mr. Council, because I heard the mayor, are the mayor and vice mayor not there?
Yeah, Bill, this is the same situation we were in the last meeting.
Okay. So the council, you just need to move to appoint someone to act as temporary interim mayor. For the clerk, what do you call it? Do you call it pro tem? What do you call the interim mayor?
I call it Mayor Pro Tem for the purposes of the meeting.
Okay, yeah, call it Mayor Pro Tem and have an action item, a motion, a second, and a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. I will now entertain a motion to appoint someone as acting mayor for tonight's meeting.
Nominate Arnold Lopez.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? So for tonight's meeting, we will have Councilman Arnold Lopez acting as mayor. The motion has passed 3-2 with Councilman Andazola and Councilman Arbizo opposing.
Okay, do you need me to sit in the middle, or you hear me well enough? You guys hear me well enough?
You're coming through pretty clear.
Okay. Bill, you hear me well enough?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. This is welcome and call to order. Please silence all cell phones so that they don't interrupt during the meeting. Again, we've already made note that the vice mayor and the mayor are not here. I would ask Mr. Hempfield to give the Pledge of Allegiance if he would, and I will give the invocation.
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, I thank you for the many blessings that you've given me, and I'm thankful for the many blessings you bring to our valley. Thank you, Father, for watching over all our employees and all our staff, and certainly the citizens of our town and valley. I ask a hedge of protection over all of them, and I ask you to be present with us to help us have knowledge in conducting tonight's business and have the outcome that's best for all our citizens. And I ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Clerk, I don't know if there's any comments on agenda items, any citizen comments on non-agenda items. Okay. So we'll move to item 7, which is a public hearing. We'll have to see if, I don't know if we have to nominate to go into public hearing or just say we're entering into it.
Yeah, you need to state that we're entering into a public hearing.
We'll be entered into a public hearing on the Matador liquor license topic, which is item 7.1.
Good evening, Pro Tem, Councilman Lopez and Council. I have a request to hold a public hearing relating to a liquor license application, to have recommendation to the State Liquor Board regarding a Series 6 bar application submitted by Lauren K. Merritt on behalf of Matador 415 LLC that will be located at 415 East US Highway 70 in Safford. In accordance with Section 38-431.01 of the Arizona Revised Statutes, a notice is hereby given, and the Mayor and Council of City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona will hold a public hearing on Monday, October 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Safford Library Program Room of the Safford Library located at 808 South 7th Avenue, Safford, Arizona. And this is for relating to the liquor license. It's been submitted by Lauren K. Merritt, who is an agent on behalf of Matador 415 LLC, that's going to be located at 415 East US Highway 70. And all the members of the public are invited to attend for the hearing. For those persons that are unable to attend, we were receiving any written comments up until 4 p.m. So at this time, if there's any public comment.
I don't. Is there any comments from the floor on this or from council? Any questions? I kind of do. So this is a transfer of the application for the liquor license. The license is going to remain in the same location.
Councilman Lopez, that's correct. It'll still be at the prior Manor House, and it's now going to be called the Matador 415 LLC. So we're just switching the ownership from the previous owners to the new owners, which is for the LLC, the Matador 415 LLC.
Okay. Now, do you happen to know, can a transfer of a liquor license, say we have one here in the city of Safford, can it be transferred out of the city of Safford?
I believe they can. It's a different process that would have to be applied with the Department of Liquor Licensing.
So, because that's
Wait,
what,
do you mean transfer? Do you mean transfer to a different person or to a different area?
a different location, like say out of our city limits.
Yeah, I have a feeling. Who has the liquor license at the golf course in Thatcher?
I thought we did, the city of Safford does.
That's my point. I know you do. That was a rhetorical question. Yes, because you can do it. Yes, you can have it outside your jurisdiction. Yes, sir.
No, what I'm getting at, Bill, is we have a liquor license in the city limits of Safford that to me generates tax revenue. Now, if somebody comes and applies for that license and is taking it out of the city of Safford, would it do us any good to say no? We want to hold on to
I
our...
think it would be.
Go ahead, sir.
I think it would be. I think it would. I'm sure that's not. It would be improper to have that be your reason. I think you have every right to say no to a liquor license transfer. And all it means, though, it just means there's a more burdensome hearing process at the state liquor board. They can issue the license over your objection, and that can occur. But I would not have a justification. I'm turning down this application because I want sales tax.
Okay, I think I got your drift on that.
Yes, sir.
Also, in the application, they said the closest school was Safford Middle School. Just for a note, I think there's a school closer to that, but still qualifies, is within means. But
So the, Councilman Lopez, so the application itself, it has submitted first to the Department of Liquor Licenses. They review everything, and when they send it back to the local governing body, all the council here is doing is recommending an approval. The Department of Liquor Licenses has already checked any mileage from the place where the liquor is going to be sold to any schools and the surrounding areas, and they've already okayed everything. So once we receive this application, it's something that's already come from the Arizona Department of Liquor Licensing, and all they want to see is that you're giving a recommendation to be approved. But as Mr. Sims said right now, if you were to decline this application, they can also override it. It's just kind of a courtesy that it's coming to council, so you're aware of it, but it's just a recommendation for approval or disapproval.
so it's a done deal.
Not necessarily, it's just a recommendation. That's all you're giving, it's not approval or
Okay.
disapproval.
Okay, is there any further comment in this hearing? If not, at this time, we move out of public hearing into regular session. Okay, item 8.1 is new business action item, the Matador 415 liquor license itself.
Thank you, Councilman Lopez. Presenting a request to the mayor and council to recommend approval to the State Liquor Board of liquor license application regarding the Series 6 application submitted by Lauren K. Merritt on behalf of Matador 15 LLC. That's going to be located at 415 East US Highway 70 in Safford. So included is the total packet that was also presented with the public hearing. And so we're just asking for a recommendation of approval to be submitted to the Department of Liquor Licensing.
Okay, thank you, Bee. So now, we'll have And if there's no further discussion, I'd like a motion to either approve or disapprove.
Move that we approve the recommendation to the State Liquor Board for Matador 415.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a first and second, and you got who it is. So, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. There was no opposed, so, okay, so, motion passes. Do you have anything to read?
No, sir?
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 8.2, the minutes. The minute approval.
Hello, Mayor and Council again. I'm submitting a request to Mayor and City Council to review and approve the minutes from the council meeting held on October 9th, 2023. Attached are the draft minutes from that meeting.
Everybody had a chance, have any comment, have any amendments to the minutes? Do I have a motion for approval?
I move that we approve the minutes from October 9th, 2023.
Second.
Been motion brought forward and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, B.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to item 9, resolution 1. Mr. Hossel.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. This is a request from the Mayor and City Council to adopt Resolution R23-025, designating Matthew Hoschel, myself, as interim Chief Financial Officer of the City of Safford for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Arizona Revised Statute 41-1279.07 Prenz E requires each county, city, town, and community college district to annually provide the Arizona Auditor General by July 31st the name of the Chief Fiscal Officer the governing body has designated to officially submit the current year's annual expenditure limitation report on the governing body's behalf. This allows the current finance officer to submit the City of Safford's FY 2024 AELR in compliance with state statutes.
That's all you got. Is there any comments? Any discussion?
Move that we approve resolution R23-025, designating Matthew Hoschel as interim Chief Financial Officer.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Hossel. Oh, you gonna say it?
I'll have to read the
Yeah,
resolution.
read your,
Approval resolution number R23-025, a resolution of the City of Safford, Arizona, Mayor and Common Council designating the interim Chief Fiscal Officer for officially submitting the fiscal year 2024 expenditure limitation report to the Arizona Auditor General. Thank you.
good to go. Item 10, item 1 of 10, Chamber of Commerce roof repairs. That'll be Mr. Bowman.
Good evening, council. This is a request for the mayor and council to approve and enter into a contract with Progressive Roofing for the roof repairs of the council Chamber of Commerce building. It's recommended by staff that the city of Safford approve this contract. A little bit of background, if you guys remember, this is the roof that we actually wound up trying to go into a state contract with Progressive Roofing last year. They put a bid out at the time of $89,000 and $89,700 in 2002 or 2022. It was requested by council that we actually go out to a formal bid to allow for some of the local vendors to potentially bid on that roof. That was the one that we didn't receive any bids back. So we recently went back to Progressive Roofing. They gave us an estimated time frame of the early March that they would get to it. I reached back out to them to make sure that we still had that spot. Because we haven't entered into contract with them as of now, it's looking like May 30th. So this request tonight is to go ahead and approve those funds and get ready to put into queue that they'll be able to replace that roof during that time frame. That's the next available spot. If If you guys remember, we did have a CIP budget in there of $100,000. Because of the inflationary and material cost, the cost of the chamber roof itself now has increased slightly, up to $94,974. So we're still about $5,000 under budget, and this will be through the general funds and the CIP. This will be the same roof that we put in all the other systems, the 20-year roof warranty on there with the same stuff that we put on every other flat roof here. So staff recommends that the mayor and council to approve and enter into agreement with Progressive Roofing for the construction of the new roof for the Chamber of Commerce building in the amount of $94,974.57. It's also recommended to allow the city manager or his designee authority to execute change orders not to exceed 10% of the contracted value. With that, I'd stand for any questions you guys may have.
Any comments? Mr. Enfield?
Just one, Gabe, I was one of the ones back then that was open to having this back up for bid for local contractors, and that cost us $5,000 in a year for not listening to your obviously sound recommendation at the time, so my apologies.
Oh, don't be at all. I think you're giving me too much credit. So we were trying to do it in the best interest. I feel like Progressive's been working with us, and obviously inflation numbers have been a lot higher than that. So I think that they've been fair in their assessment, and I feel lucky that we're within $4,000, $5,000. So
Gabe, did we get any local bids?
we didn't receive any bids at all, local, or we opened it up to the public bid. So that would have been internal, external. So we didn't receive any local or externals at the time either.
And we had them here at the time, already working, correct?
We did. We tried to put it onto through the cooperative agreement contract that we had at the time. So
Lesson learned.
Right.
And I wasn't in favor of it at that time either. I thought it was high, and we tried to do it locally. But one of the other good things we found out about it is you came back a few months later and you explained to us how some of the time frame you have to go through for bids, and how long it takes and the steps that you have to go through. That's the lesson I learned out of it, was just how much you're up against. So when I get faced with that again, I'll give it more thought and ask more questions.
appreciate it, Mr. Lopez.
This is an action item. Have any motions from the floor to accept?
I move that we approve the contract with Progressive Roofing for the Chamber of Commerce roof repairs.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
No one against, B. You're still up there, Mr. Bowman, and this is the landfill expansion on environmental survey.
Yep, correct. Thank you, council. This is a request for the mayor and council to authorize a service contract for the environmental assessment, which is required by BLM for the land acquisition of the expansion of the landfill. The contract award is proposed to be given to Enviro Systems Management, LLC, or Inc., and they're headquartered out of Flagstaff. A little bit of background, we've been working with BLM for potentially up to 280 acres for a land swap for the expansion of the landfill, which is set to expire in 2044. So we're gonna look at this opportunity. We still need to do some of the design layout for the landfill itself, the new expansion. We can also utilize a lot of that material for fill cover. Currently, we're kind of pulling that from a borrow pit that's a little bit further away, so this would be easier on the guys to be able to utilize that material, and also be able to start designing that and building that. To kind of give a little bit of more background, we've been working with BLM. They sent us a list, a pre-approved list. We had to get somebody that they were familiar with and understood the work that they were getting. So they sent us 3 different vendors. We did an RFQ with them. That was released back in July 24th. And we once again received no interest in our RFQ. So what we did is we went back to the state cooperative agreements again. We've identified 2 more candidates and worked with BLM to pre-approve them, make sure that they've qualified for the work that was being done. They've accepted them. We wound up reaching out to Logan Simpson, who was part of our park RFQ design, And they wound up submitting us a quote of $162,000, which was quite a bit more than our $75,000 budget. So we didn't know, not being experts in the environmental assessment and how big that was, we were kind of relying on BLM's number. And so what we did is we actually reached out to a second one, even in the cooperative agreement, and that's that environmental systems management. And they were very similar in their estimates for the environmental assessment. You can see the two numbers there in the analysis that we wound up putting there. Kind of looking at some of the budgets, there was two parts to this that BLM's requiring. One of them is a mineral potential report. So they have to go in there and get a survey looking at the potential of any valuable assets that may be in the ground. That was under $60,000, so we haven't presented that to you, but it is underway. We've actually wound up taking that and getting bids on that one. It was $12,000, and we got Larry Thrasher working on that currently right now, which is part of this BLM transfer. And then the second part is this request tonight for the environmental assessment. The amount tonight, we got two options. That Logan Simpson's is about just a touch under $5,000 less than what we're proposing on for environmental systems. And the reason being is there's potential for savings. With environmental systems, they're allocating about $47,000 for cultural if it's needed. So we may not spend it all. That area we're kind of thinking doesn't have a whole lot of cultural survey that was required. So there's even though we'll be spending a little bit more on the amount for contract, I think there's going to be a significant saving potential in this contract. With that being said, we did have a budget of $75,000. We've already spent $12,000 of that for the mineral potential report, and so this environmental assessment of the $167,455 puts us at a total physical impact of $179,455. That's $104,455 over budget of what we had. We're proposing that these funds be from the enterprise funds, and then also contingency funds from the landfill, and the amount of $104,455. So with that, staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the proposal and enter into an agreement with Enviro Systems Management LLC for the environmental assessment for the expansion of the landfill in the amount of $167,455. It's also recommended that the city manager or his designee have the authority to execute change orders and not to exceed 10% of the contracted value. And with that, I'd answer any questions you guys may have.
Any questions here?
I kind of have a little question on how much money we're spending. I mean, I'd like to know a little more about where that money's coming from and why we're so far off on our guess.
So when we put that budgetary estimate together, it was actually through the direction of BLM. We didn't have the expertise in what this was going to cost, so we relied on their recommendation of the $75,000. Obviously, that wasn't reflective of where we're at today, right? Whether there's all the changes or not. We did to get the secondary quote that makes us feel more comfortable that they weren't outlier. The first one wasn't an outlier. That's why we wanted to get the secondary quote to see, just to make sure that it was a fair assessment. I believe that the two companies are fair in their market value. I think we were just off on the early estimates on what it was going to take.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Myself?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman McGoy, when we began our conversations with BLM, one of the things that we wanted to work with, because it's very specialized, right? It's a NEPA process associated with the landfill closing. So they made recommendations to us of several firms that we could use that they would approve as part of that process, and then they gave us the estimate of what it would cost for us to have it done. So the estimate we got directly from them based on the vendors they were recommending that they would approve. We ended up having to go in a different direction, and as Mr. Bowman indicated, even the secondary assessment that we did was in the same ballpark. So we were relying on BLM in that, and I'm not trying to place the blame on them, it's just a very specialized thing. When we were going on a set of vendors, they offered, and they also provided us with that estimate.
Thank you. I know it's something we've got to go forward with, but it's a big chunk to swallow.
It is. And just, I know that there's been a lot of conversation on the landfill and the fact that there's a closure fee associated with the landfill at some point down the road. So the rates have been set. to always be providing additional funding going into the landfill. So, for example, the CAFR from FY 2022 showed us having a plus balance going into the fund balance of $700,000. So just to give you a sense of, even though we're spending potentially, and again, we don't know if we'll have to go that far, another 104,000, we're still well on our way to adding that additional money into the fund balance so that we'll be ready to do the closure down the road.
Because too, it seems like we just okayed the budget, and now we have lots of things coming, contingency, usages and stuff. And this department isn't, I'm not saying it's not the strongest and stuff, but it doesn't have the largest budget either.
No.
And this is quite is it gonna impact it bad?
No is the answer.
That's
And
what
again,
I'm
that's
trying
why
to
I'm
still
trying to
say.
provide that. So just in 22 alone, you added a positive $700,000 cash flow to the fund balance. And so we're continually adding based on the way the rates were structured. Now, ideally, we don't want to have to use it as much as possible, but in the case of something like the landfill closure, it's a process we have to go through. So I don't think that, given the overall cost of that closure and the amount this represents, that it'll have a negative impact on the fund overall.
Well, we've extended the landfill usage by being able to go vertical. So that's extended that. I just don't want it to impact it, because I'm not crazy about raising rates again. That's what I want to try to avoid, so.
Right.
Well, is there any more discussion on this? This is an action item. If not, I'd seek a motion for approval or disapproval.
I move that we authorize a service contract for the environmental assessment required by BLM based on the bid we got.
I second it. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that be.
Thank you, council.
So now we're item 11, where we're to close regular meeting and reconvene into a work session. That doesn't take a motion, huh, Pete? I lose track sometimes for sure what the rules are, which ones we followed and which ones we haven't.
You're good.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Jamie.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and City Council to hold a work session to receive an update from staff and discuss the newly established neighborhood officer position. The council approved a full-time position to enable the city to provide comprehensive enforcement of our codes, as well as assistance to citizens who can't care for their properties. Andrew Bell started on July 3rd, 2023, and will present an overview of his efforts to date. Staff has worked to make sure that all aspects of our code are consistently enforced. Staff has also discovered some areas of the code that will need to be updated and/or clarified with input from the council. A brief overview of the issues will be given this evening, and they will be brought back to council for further discussion and action. They are possibility of renaming the position, which was a suggestion from the mayor, blight removal funding opportunities, RV regulation updates, signage updates, tree removal updates, and damaged fencing updates. Staff is requesting input for the program as it stands, and with that, if you don't have any questions for me, I will turn the presentation time over to Mr. Bell.
And no questions of Jamie? All right.
Good evening, Mayor, Pro Tem, and Council. So here would be the first quarter update of the neighborhood officer. Where we began with a complaint-based system. Comprehensive programming was not available. Staff lacked the time to work through complicated cases, and violations were often not followed through with. The process of code violations. We start off with a door notice or communication through the property owner knocking on the door. And it would, after, they get 2 weeks roughly to comply. If they do not comply, we move down to the next box, which is they get a letter that gives them 30 days to comply. If they still do not comply, it will go to the city attorney. From the city attorney, it will go to court, and if there's no court info available, we'll go to the abatement. If we go through the abatement process, a second letter to the property owner and tenant will be sent, and they will have 30 days from receiving the letter with a quote to clean the property. And if they comply, then it will stop all court proceedings.
You're new to us. Do you want us to ask questions while you're doing your presentation, or do you want us to wait till afterwards?
Whatever is easier for you, council.
So we want to make sure you're comfortable too. So if you have a door notice, any kind of notice to start out with, how do you verify that they actually got notified?
I hang that door notice on their door, and I'll take a picture of that door notice on their door,
That indicates you left it.
that I left it.
But how do we know they got it?
If they do not get it, they'll get a letter, and they'll still have 30 days to comply. So they're not going straight to court. So even if they didn't get the door notice, say somebody took it or blew away, they will get a notice in the certified mail knowing that they got it.
Okay, sir.
So we broke the city into 17 zones. Each zone is driven on a rotation for a more proactive approach. When we drive around each zone, I'm looking for weeds, debris, junk, non-running vehicles. And it usually takes roughly 1 month to do a complete cycle of the city. Violations by zone, July through September. There were 85 new cases, 35 cases complied, 38 active cases were in progress or were making improvements, and 12 were forwarded to the attorney for no contact with the owners or no progress. As you can see, each zone, that's the number of violations in that area. Most common issues is debris, weeds, illegal dumping, and non-running vehicles. Neighborhood cleanup projects we have been working on is we've got a community cleanup trailer that actually just arrived today. And this will be a free service for residents residing within the city limits, and the property owners who have code violations will have priority over non-violators to use the service. And then another project that we worked on was we had a section of the city that we brought dumpsters over, and I hand-delivered flyers to every residence in the neighborhood and answered questions or concerns that they had. And that ran for a week. And at the end of this slide, there'll be a little more small breakdown of the event. We came up with new door hangers with QR codes. The QR code will bring you straight to the Planning and Community Development page, where there'll be resources to help with compliance. Currently, we have the landfill information, but soon we will have the community cleanup trailer information and the volunteer list. What updates to discuss in the future is obsolete signage. They are defined but not regulated. Hazardous trees are not clearly addressed in the code. Damaged fencing, not addressed in the code. And RV storage council input on ordinances. Light removal possible funding opportunities. We have 3 possible light removal opportunities that the city's working on. Organizations for cleanup assistance, the Way World Outreach, and the LDS Missionaries. And this was the project we just discussed a little while ago in that area of the city. We had over 5 tons of residential trash, 27 appliances, 23 tires, and the sanitation department reported they dumped the 8-yard cans 4 times. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Bell and Ms. Embeck, I want to say you guys are doing an excellent job. I want to praise you on what you guys are doing. This is really great, and I think we're making an advancement in cleaning up our community to make it a great place to visit. And so keep up the good work. That's all I can say, Mr. Bell. You're doing an awesome job, so keep it up.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. McGoy?
Andrew, you got on the page that had the new trailer on there, there was a mark there that said these things are not accepted at the landfill or not part of the deal. Lance and I have talked, and countywide there's an issue with oil, paint, I think paint's understandable, but I would hope that at some point in the future we can come up with a way to systematically run through those things and have a way for people to get rid of them without dumping them in the desert, because I'm afraid that's where they're going now if we don't allow them in the landfill. And we can't allow them in the landfill, but there needs to be a place for them, and I would hope that you or Jamie or whoever needs to go down that road would try to work that out with the other towns in the county and figure out a way to get that figured out.
Sir, on this trailer that you're dropping off, how long did they get to keep it?
We're planning on dropping it off at a residence on Monday and picking it up on a Thursday, and then re-delivering it that Thursday to the new residents. So hopefully 2 residents a week.
2 residents a week possibly, because
Hopefully, yes.
somebody may keep it all week.
They have, that's their time. I mean, if there's a really bad yard, we can extend give them a whole week. But the calendar we have set up is hopefully 2 a week.
Okay. So it's just Monday through Thursday, this service?
And
then Thursday through Monday.
Thursday through Monday.
And then Thursday.
Yeah,
through
so there's
Monday.
2 a
All right,
week.
Good, that's where I was losing it. All right. Good.
And Councilman McGoy, to your point, in the past, like, we actually had a special day for toxic items where we actually would have people drop things off. So I think the only thing that we have to look at is what that processing looks like once we take it on. But that's something we can look at in terms of maybe having a day where people bring stuff to us and then see where we would have to have it processed, so.
I know we did it years ago, and it was expensive, I think is probably why we didn't do it again, but it's more expensive to have that stuff dumped outside wherever they can dump. I think it's easier to pay the fiddler first.
Yep.
And right now you're making it free.
Yes, Councilman.
Any other questions?
So, I mean, before we go, I want to emphasize that there's a lot in this presentation, and it's, in some ways it's subtle, but, so some of the more active, organizational, like administrative functions, like the yard cleanups and things of that nature. So as we move forward, we'll get into some of the bigger picture items in terms of overall programs, in terms of like blight and that type of thing, and also code adjustments. Part of what I'd like to see is some cleaning up of the infrastructure along like Highway 70, we've already looked at that. We actually have acquired the property with the old sign coming in on the east side of town. I have the check on my desk right now to go pay for that. So we'll be doing some monument changes, signs as well. So again, we will bring back at a later date, and the detail that you're seeing on this kind of neighborhood cleanup will be things that are reflected in the code and having standards for maintaining your property, your infrastructure, signage, things of that nature, as part, again, another layer to this, and then ultimately looking at grant funding for blight. And as far as my understanding so far, blight could be a single lot can be designated as blight. So we'll have to look at creating the program, but some of the initial phases is this kind of yard cleanup, and you can see in one go how much we got. But there are other layers to this that we'll bring back, and of course, as we go more down that road and we begin to make some changes and have those standards, then things may get a little bit more active in terms of getting feedback. So again, we want to make sure that we bring back to you whatever the code adjustments are, what the expectations are, so that you're prepared if the phone rings and property owners are saying, hey, you know, why are you pressing the issue? Because I think there's a huge impact for this. It's very visible. The aesthetic is very important. And so again, there'll be more details coming down the road on code changes as well as blight programs.
Who makes contact with the World Outreach and or the LDS missionaries?
The property owners would get to choose who they would want to use to help them.
And then you try to get the help for them?
So they'll communicate amongst each other, so I won't be the middleman. They can coordinate what works best for their schedules.
Okay,
So again, we're in a work session environment, and so is there any feedback, thoughts? Some of the questions kind of imply direction. Are there anything here that you'd like to see or not seeing?
Well, I'm still seeing it like a pilot program, and there's other things that are gonna arise that they're gonna get questions, like who actually owns it? Are we gonna be dealing with anybody that owns the building and there's renters there who, we're not gonna do it for commercial people, I know that, but there's gonna be some problems that arise from people trying to utilize it when there are more, they're gonna have to scrutinize who actually needs it, who don't need it.
Yeah, and I believe that Mesa has a program, we kind of modeled ours on Mesa. So again, we're not reinventing the wheel, we're using a blueprint that's out there already, and I'm sure they've gone through some of these issues and questions that you're having. So again, you're correct, as we implement, it will evolve, we'll learn, the things that work, don't work. But the property owners, I believe, would be the ones who would be responsible, ultimately, not the renters, for any kind of residential cleanups.
Yeah, that's right, because you have the hanger, then you have the other certified notification. Some of that's already gonna get answered, that's why I knew there'd be other things on the horizon. So we'll have a presentation on this again to let us know
Yes.
how it's going along.
Yes, you will. And there'll be new levels that will be activated in this, and it will have an impact, so that's why we wanna make sure you're seeing it as we go, so we know we're going in the right direction, and we're going in the direction that council's comfortable with, so then we can then go back and take the next step and bring some new materials, code changes and the like.
Well, I know the vice mayor wanted this a lot. They've got it going. We have somebody actually now identified to do it and take care of it, so the process has started.
Yes.
For me, the questions are yet to come.
Yes.
Mainly,
Yes.
how's it going?
Yes, and Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I think the photos of the items that were collected in this first attempt at a neighborhood collection shows that people want to dispose of their items properly. They pushed, pulled, or carried them that far. I think it shows that the community is also dedicated to working on their own property. They just didn't have the opportunity to get some of these larger items to the landfill. So I think what I'm seeing is they may have had the refrigerator on their porch for 5 years and not known where to put it, and now it's where it belongs safely and with regulations. So I think that's something that we should really catch from these photos also, is how much effort these people put into responding to Andrew and taking their items, placing them where they belong, and disposing of them correctly when they had the opportunity.
Yeah, Mr. McGoy's concerns about hazardous material will be figured out. They actually have some muscle to possibly help them load it up. And so, again, Jamie and sir, the questions are to be coming forward still from me. I don't know about the rest.
It's clear to me that this is already happening, but I would just always like to see the focus be that we're here to help. And it's obvious that that's what's occurring. Like you said with the refrigerator, some people just don't know what to do. And when we reach out and say, how can we help with this? Or here's what we can do to help, that's 90% of the issue, I think. So I appreciate that. And I would hope that would continue to be the focus, is we're trying to assist, not be punitive.
Yes, sir.
And some people didn't know, and I hope we still evacuate the refrigerant from the refrigerator still. In the past, they didn't know who to take it to, but now we do. I think we still do it at the landfill.
Yeah, we have a machine that does it, right? Yeah.
But see, a lot of citizens don't actually know we do that. So that needs to be brought out there a little bit more, I would think.
And I think it's a good point, but even,
Okay.
well, it's just that a lot of this is communication, I think, and to Jamie's point, I think we opened a door and a lot of people walked through it, right? It's because they didn't know what to do or where to take something, and now, not only do they know where to take it, we can dispose of it properly. So the thing with like the refrigerants are gonna be handled appropriately. And so again, I think a big part of the whole program is making sure that we're communicating that this is a positive thing and we are here to assist. And I think some of this, when you talk about the trailers and using the 501c3s, there may be people in the community, elderly, who can't, get their yards in order. This will allow them to have additional assistance to get that done and get that stuff out of there. So again, this is something that should be seen as being helpful and beneficial at the same time.
And we as a council need to remember that we need to support this program. We need to support Ms. Embeck and Mr. Bell in this process. So this is very important, because without our support, you guys are gonna get, anything done. With us helping you and all that, we can get more achieved to get this community looking great.
Is there any certain direction you were hoping to get from us that we haven't addressed?
No, sir, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Really, at this stage, we wanted to make sure that you're happy with the direction that we are going and show you some of the work that Andrew has accomplished and make sure that we're going in the direction you prefer. And from what I'm hearing, important things are make sure we're here to help and it's not punitive, and make sure that that's our #1 priority.
I just had one more thing, or one or two more things I want to say. One of them is thank you, Andrew, for taking this job and taking it serious. I hear a lot of good things. One thing I want to exhort the powers that be, we still have some filthy alleys, and it's really hard to tell somebody to clean their property up if we haven't cleaned ours up. Those alleys are ours, and it's our job. I mean, granted, that stuff didn't get there by itself, but we got some filthy alleys that need cleaned up. Arnold's got one up there behind his house. But I do wanna, and I'm not saying this to embarrass you, Andrew, but I've known you for quite a while, and I heard you say more tonight than I've heard in your whole entire time that I've known you. And I wanna encourage you to exercise that, 'cause you're doing a good job.
And he created the entire PowerPoint himself and took all the photos, and he has designed the program. When he came on, I let him know what I wanted, and he came up with the zone idea. He's designed the entire project.
Very good.
And further direction, we're good to go then? All right. We'll move to item 2 in the work session, the disbursement of the city funds to charitable or nonprofit organizations. Mr. Hassel.
Good evening again. Staff is seeking direction from the Mayor Pro Tem and City Council regarding the application submitted through the city's disbursement of funds of charitable and non-profit organization program. During the FY 2024 budget process, the Mayor and City Council discussed the opportunity for nonprofit and charitable organizations to apply for city funds. Staff brought the idea of creating an application process for these entities. The Mayor and City Council approved the budget $50,000 in FY 2024 for nonprofit and charitable organizations to solicit through an application process City of Safford donations. Staff advertised and opened a submission window of the month, September 5th through October 5th. Staff has collected and organized the submitted applications. Staff received 5 applications during the submission window. The 5 applications were reviewed for completeness and compiled into a table. The 5 applicants are as follows: SECUS, the Women's Club of Safford, Graham County Substance Abuse Coalition, St. Vincent de Paul St. Rose of Lima, Safford Conference, Gila Valley Arts Council. The total amount requested for each is in the attached table, and the total amount requested for all applicants combined is $24,745. At this time, if council would like, they can review the applications and discuss the amounts requested. I've also attached the guidelines and the application for reference.
I have a question. Copy?
Go ahead.
I've had several phone calls. How do we advertise this?
So this process and the window was advertised on our Facebook. It was advertised on the city webpage, and we also, the city manager and myself visited the chamber during a local meeting of nonprofit organizations.
I guess we've had a few organizations not make the deadline. And so they're wondering what we could do to help, but I mean, if you're putting it out there, I mean, it's just, they missed the deadline.
And it's always a challenge. Public information is tricky. In Sierra Vista, we used to do a full page in the newspaper all the time, and people would be like, when are the meetings being held? So, it's one of those things where we're trying to find as many ways as possible. I mean, we could maybe do something on the radio as well, maybe in the future. And again, this is a pilot, so depending on council's reaction and how this goes, this could be something that we work into going forward and kind of take some of that on board and make sure that we're trying to go as far as we can. I think there's always going to be people that kind of become aware of it at the 11th hour and maybe miss it. And hopefully, the whole point of this is to avoid that, right? The reason we're putting it out there is equitability, right? It's to give as many people an opportunity as possible. So I'm not sure who missed or if no one has contacted me about the deadline, so I don't know.
I've had 2 organizations call me.
Okay. So yeah, there's always going to be that element where somebody kind of misses it, I guess.
And with that being said, if it's council's decision and this becomes a yearly process, I mean, there's always the opportunity in future years for a nonprofit or a charitable organization that didn't make the deadline this time to apply in the upcoming budget. So it's not, but that's also up to council's decision if they, since this is a pilot program and they want to continue, or you guys want to continue.
And they'll become familiar, right? They'll know it's coming.
So I see that the application is open for 1 month. Is there a way that we can talk about that, maybe extending that?
Sure. Because if we go into the budget cycle, which is the intent at some point, if the pilot is something that appeals to council and we go forward and make it part of the budget, we can extend that window knowing that going into the budget cycle, you have a certain amount of money and that, we can go in and start because this one came late. So you would know your budget cycle coming in. You could start advertising in November and let it go all the way through to January or some date. So as you go into that budget cycle, you'll know within the rhythm of that budget what you have. So there's always an opportunity to make it longer and extend it. I wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be at all. In fact, I was surprised there were as few as there were, but there's no way to know, so because it's our first bite at the apple. So
I'm with Councilman Arvizo on that. tweaking it now, with the communication, the extensions, because what's gonna happen after a year, 2 years, we're gonna get to a point where we have more than we can offer probably, and at that point, we will have to be a little more strict.
Yes.
That's when, once we've solidified what we wanna do, then it's gotta,
Stay.
yeah. But I was surprised too that we didn't even use up what we had budgeted, but I think if we can make some changes, we'll get to a point where we.
Right, and it's new, so as people become aware
Right.
that it's coming around, you'll start to see that momentum. And then again, then you start to have to look at this and say, what is the purpose for which we've organized this? And then you may have to make some cuts and draw a line
Right.
at some point.
So is it too late to extend this, or this one's done?
You know, I would prefer that we don't at this point, but again, it's up to council. If they're, I mean, as we continue to go forward, we're starting to getting to the point where we're going into the next budget cycle, so it's almost, they would be able to apply for the next cycle
Next one.
almost at this point.
Okay.
Mr. McGoy?
I don't really know where I wanna go here, but is it possible to do this in quarters? I mean, I realize the budget happens once, but for somebody who just had their function last month, it's hard to know what they're gonna need in 11 months, whereas whoever's working on next month's thing, they're gonna be there. It seems like if this were somehow a rotating function, I know certain parts of the year have more things going on than others do, but it just seems like asking somebody to know what they're gonna need in a year is maybe not as productive as we could be.
It's a budget. That's what we do every year. That's what most organizations, they plan their budget every year knowing what they're going to, or anticipate.
But it just leaves out the newcomers.
Well, it will in the beginning, but as we go into the
There
next,
will always be newcomers.
yes, there will.
So
I
they
think-
always get left out, so they don't
No,
get to
they'll always
start.
be ready for the next cycle, I guess. It's
It-
not really left out, it's a process,
I
but
just thought maybe we could explore that.
we
If I-
probably could. We could look at it and see administratively how we would, you know, again, you're only gonna have a certain, amount of appropriation for a year. So you can kind of break that down, but you may get everybody on the front end of the first quarter expending beyond what that is, and maybe you spend out before you
We
even
could
get.
decide we're only gonna spend a fourth of
Yeah,
it each
and
quarter.
you could do that, but then
I-
people would, you know, I guess the line would get drawn, and I guess they would reapply again and keep reapplying every quarter to get picked. But I mean, I'm not saying we can't do it, we could try it, see how it
I
works.
just-
If
it's a
I
work
can-
session, it's just an idea.
If I can interject as well, the application that we have, the guidelines, part of the eligibility says that the organization must be established for a minimum of 2 years as well. So it would really, a newcomer, a new 501c3 wouldn't be able to apply based on the eligibility guidelines that we currently have in place. So they would have to be established for 2 years before they could even apply to the current program that we have. Now, if it's,
I think you're referencing just new to the process, not new as a 501c3.
Both, I mean, it's really hard if I'm new to the process and new to the game, it's really hard to go it on my own.
And-
if I can't get any help, that makes it harder.
and
Get
as,
any help in what sense? You mean like us?
Monetarily, if I can't even be part of the grant or part of the
Right.
deal, I have to do that all on my own if I wanna get 2 years of experience in, I have to fund it myself. That's tough for a newcomer.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, you see, 5 applicants here, but really there's more than that. We have people that are on this right now that were in the budget. Now, they should have to reapply next year also, if this is gonna be across the board.
that there are 501c3 and nonprofit organizations that are currently in our budget under council-directed spending in the council budget, yes.
So we will have, this was a pilot program to identify how we want people coming to request money from us how to approach us, because we have limited amount of funds. So you're saying we got two pockets, these are gonna be treated different than this one?
Currently, based on how we passed the budget and council's decision, there is the application program that we're talking about tonight, and
Now.
then there's also the amount that is budgeted in council's budget for community-directed spending. If it's council's decision to have those that are currently in council's budget in the upcoming budget year, that's a discussion that we can have on moving those and having them apply with the other 501c3s and the nonprofits. But there are also some organizations in council's budget that get more than the $5,000. So that would be something that council would have to decide if they wanted to increase that threshold. I think out of what is in council's budget right now, there are at least 2 or 3 nonprofits that receive more than 5,000. One being the Arizona Community Foundation, and that's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, you also have the Boys and Girls Club, the lot where the recreation equipment is, that's 10,800. So those are the 2, and the Safe House gets 7,000, so that would be a
So
third.
3.
We decided that. We decided to leave those separate. The
Right.
council did.
Right, and one of the reasons that we did that was the pilot program came in later in the budget cycle. So rather than change what existed, we tried to do the pilot to see what other groups would apply. So it's the idea of equitability. So now you've got what's in the budget, right, which is $48,000 worth of funding right now that's in the budget currently. You now are seeing the pilot program, and we're getting some feedback as to how we want to shape that application process. One of the discussions that you'll want to have going into the next budget cycle is exactly this point, which is, given these 2 situations, do we now want to combine everything into one, have an application process for all, and then adjust the ceiling to accommodate what we're currently funding? So, again, council can decide, I can apply for 10,000, you may give me 2. Just because they apply for 10 doesn't mean you give them 10. So maybe you raise that ceiling to accommodate that, right now the Arizona Community Foundation gets $17,800. I think it's 500. So they reallocate those out as part of a granting process. You could make that be separate because of the nature of that transfer. Again, so that's something we would talk about as we go through the budget. Do you want to have one unified process that everyone applies, and then we readjust the parameters based on everybody that's getting funding right now? Do you want to keep it split? The one thing I would say is any in-kind services we provide, so like Boys and Girls Club, we cover utilities, we cover rent, that wouldn't be part of it. It would only be cash outlays. So things like the rental of the property in the back, that would be something they could apply for. So again, do you want to go through as we go in the budget and say, let's combine it and just have one application process for everybody?
And I think another one that we can add to that list is the Samaritan House as well. I think that one's going to be another one that we do in kind with as well, and so
Right.
that would be a separate one.
So you're not applying in that sense, you're covering that cost in kind.
So that's, I think, a discussion we ought to have every year. Not just rubber stamp some of them through.
And I think, if I can interject on Councilman McGoy's point, the quarterly thing, United Way does something similar to that, where every quarter they meet and they give out funds based on applications for their grants, correct? And if that could be something that would be possible but I don't know, I haven't looked into that, and I don't know how difficult it would be administratively.
Because we would have to advertise in advance because your window is much shorter. So we'd have to have a schedule that we put out at the beginning of the year that would lay out all of those opportunities, the windows for those opportunities, and then whatever amount of money might be available for that, And then remember, those who apply would be uneven, so, but it's something that we could look at.
That's just a conversation I think we ought to have next budget, is to bring this up and not, because some of these get lost. And we just say, well, we've been doing that all along, and it just keeps going and going.
Right, and my only point was that we did have a version of that discussion, and that's the direction that we
Yes.
gave.
Mhm.
So
And then-
just to be fair to staff,
Yeah,
we did have that discussion, and we said, let's do this.
yes, and then now we have this.
Whether
so-
that was a rubber stamp or not, that's on us.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have this discussion and do our share of tweaking
Right.
and guidance on what goes forward. But a lot of the information that came out in these applications is something that was interesting on exactly how much of the dollar we give goes to something. So, that, I don't know, guess then, for me, I'm done with the discussion because I would like to have it more in depth like we did before.
And then think of even like Feed My Starving Children, right? It could be something that's applied for and becomes, instead of, again, having to do this unique kind of process where, you know, it all be part of the same process. And it creates equitability, and that really is the point, right? The point is, A, when you get an application, you get enough detail to do an assessment about what is the services being rendered, but you're also opening it up so that it's people who might not be as familiar with the process, who some may come to a council meeting because they're more familiar and be able to present and be more likely, whereas this broadens that appeal to more groups that might not know that process, but they may see an advertisement on Facebook, or if we advertise on the radio and so on. So again, it's an equitability kind of thing.
Is there any more discussion?
So for staff's sake, the next step would be to bring this as an action item for the disbursement of funds, I believe. And council decides that these are how we want to spend these funds on these organizations. So the discussion tonight was just to discuss the applications and then to approve them in a future meeting.
You want to bring action item on the 5 that you brought before us?
Correct.
Okay.
And then as we go forward, 3 points that I have were expand the time frame for application, reduce the time frame that they're in existence, so newer 501c3s would be eligible, so not having such a lengthy period that they're already in existence, and then see if we can do something with a quarterly rollout. So those would be changes going forward. If we, as part of the budget cycle, if we want to bring a new application, those would be 3 items that we may want to look at to change.
And I think in the discussion before, Mr. McGoy I think you were concerned of how lengthy the questionnaire was, the information that was being asked. I don't know if you still feel that way now on this.
I don't as much. It kinda got explained what they needed to know, and it was all in there.
Yeah, and I tried to kind of pull it back a little bit, and so I gave them the opportunity to say, hey, tell me what you want to do in an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and just satisfy some of these legal requirements, like, you know, 501c3, Arizona Corporate Commission, that kind of thing. So, and then some of the other stuff is who's on your board, so hopefully it's relatively, but again, we can give you that application again, let you look at it, and if there are any other tweaks you want to make to it, let us know and we can make the adjustments.
I just didn't want it to look monumental to the first timer. is
Yeah.
all.
Yes.
And of course, we would help anybody, if they're trying to make application, they need assistance, we'd be happy to help anybody trying to apply. I talked to a few people as we met with the group at the chamber, and I talked to several people there when we rolled this out and offered assistance too. So staff is always there to help them fill this stuff out, and if they have any questions. So-
Yeah, and I would hope that if anyone did approach a council member, that they could direct us to us and we could help them fill out those applications, since they don't feel like they can't or complete the process because they can't fill out the applications, and we'd be more than willing to help them.
So, but you did write down Mr. Arbizo's concern, so that's down there.
Yes.
Okay.
And so just to give you a sense now, so if you look at 48K that you have in the budget, and you look at the 50 that were part of the pilot, you're talking about basically $98,000 all in, so
Right.
100,000 of funding potentially. So again, just to kind of give you
Yeah,
a
we'll
sense.
have to change the amount if we're gonna roll those others, or not roll them in, but require them to participate in the same process.
Right, and is that, so when you add them together, it sounds like you got some heft there in terms of
I'm glad you
funding.
mentioned that, cause I was going to, and then I was gonna let it pass, but yeah, we're gonna have to be willing to to consider that amount if we're gonna do it that way.
So that's where you're at today. Based on the pilot and what's in the budget, you're at 98K. And again, as you go forward, you create the application process. Is that an overall amount you're still comfortable with? Again, that's something you would have to decide.
Did you receive some direction?
I did, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I'm looking to close the work session and reconvene into regular session. Okay. Item 14 is the finance reports on the P cards. Any questions on that? The expenses over 5,000 report. And revenues over 5,000 report. I guess there's not. No, we're good here so far. I'm not bringing up P-card. Okay, we're going to 15, report on operational items. Mr. Brimhall's up there, so I guess he got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Good evening. This evening, we just wanted to bring an operational item before you to share with you our fall fee adjustments. In October, we review the current status of our PPAs, both in gas and electric, around what those look like, and then the status of our stabilization fund, the gas fund. If you remember correctly, back in March, we made some adjustments to respond to the market at that point in time. This evening, we wanted to just bring this back to allow you to see where we reviewed our current status here for October to find where we're at, and beginning October 20th, which we just passed, obviously, our rates will be decreased in our gas stabilization fund. We're able to meet our requirement in our gas stabilization fund with our past rate change, and so there'll be a significant decrease in our gas stabilization rate of approximately 10 cents per CCF in our gas, and then in our electric PPA, our rate will be decreasing back to the 5.5 cents per kilowatt hour that we had prior to March. That is really hard to read up on the wall. I apologize. I'll make note of that so I don't use that red again. So within those are the, just to show that they're in the negative points. So you'll be getting a small credit within your CCF's usage from our stabilization rate portion of the rate, which is just 1% or 10% of a penny, so just 0.1 penny per CCF usage. So I apologize for that visual. And just a reminder that our stabilization fund and what we target for that, the target balance in the stabilization account is 10% of the sum of the actual costs for the previous 12 months. And so that's how we determine where we want that stabilization rate to be, and then determine what those rates need to be to try and keep it there for the next portion. So we'll be in these rates will be in the rate for the next 5 months, and then they'll be reviewed again in March. Gentlemen, I just wanted to bring that to you.
Do you want questions? Hopefully. Sir, I didn't get this slide on my.
So this slide is not in your packets. It'll come in the email. Our clerk will add that to the distribution. It's just an operational update. So we just wanted to provide that information for you this evening.
Okay, because I'd have probably called you to ask you questions about it just to make sure. Now, are you gonna advertise this to the public that we're gonna decrease it?
It'll be in the comments section of their billing. It'll be placed in there and commented specifically, just like we did when we had the rate changes back in March.
But it's not gonna impact them enough. I'd like them to know we're doing this for them.
Thank you, Sam.
Because right now, they're gonna think that their utility bill went down because there's a seasonal change, and we'll get no credit for effort at all, you know? I'm not saying let's play politics with it, but I would like to let them know that we're doing this.
Yeah, so it'll be in their billing, it'll show it, obviously you'll see it in the billing for the rate itself, but we'll break it down similar to this in the comment section in the bill as it goes out, so they'll have that visibility.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, yeah, we'll put something together. I think we can put together a press release and maybe even do a radio spot on it and discuss the phenomena around the commodities market, what created the increases in the first place, and also the fact that the way our rates are built, there's the opportunity then when that spike went down, because it was a spike, so we had to catch up to the spike, but as fast as they go up, they come down, and so by having this ability to adjust every 6 months, we can now bring those rates down. So I think we can do a press release that explains in some detail, and maybe we can even, in addition, in the bill, maybe we can put that into the billing, something that has a little bit more detail to it to explain exactly what we're doing, because there is the possibility going forward that we'll take another step again and roll this back even further once we see the revenues come in again, see if we're in the right place, depending on what the market does. So again, we're not used to making these adjustments because for many years the prices of gas was very stable. So with the volatility, you're seeing a lot more rate adjustments now. So to your point, we'll put something together that's more detailed so that the customers know that we're bringing it back down on the other side.
I guess I just had another question. With, when these rates going up and down, has there been any increase of people getting on the program of averaging out their bill through the year? Has that increased at all? Or the staff is
don't know
not
that.
here to answer that?
Yeah, that'd be a
Yeah,
James
we
question.
could follow that up for sure and let you guys know if there's been any addition to that process.
Okay, because that's something else I would hope you'd put out to the public. Hey, you might want to do that this year.
But that program exists.
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
Okay.
How does this translate to the average customer? I mean, they're obviously not going back to a pre-gas war bill, I'm sure.
No, definitely not falling all the way back to where the beginning of it was. We put it back up there, Steve, Councilman McGoy, our prices, the rates that we had there for a significant amount of time was that 5.5 cent in our electric PPA adjustment. And so we've gone back to that. That was one of it was, for years, that's what that was. And so we've been able to pull that back as the market's pulled back on that cost, just on the values that have come in through those pricings.
And my follow-up on that is, and for lack of a better way of saying it, is our savings account that we spend all that money out of, are we back kind of where we ought to be?
And so specifically talking to that around our gas stabilization rate, so it had been higher than it needed to be for several years, and we had been, that's where that negative in our first rate increase went from a negative. They had been getting an 18-cent credit per CCF usage. Prior to that, we had used all of that savings up in that February and March poke, and so we had made these rate adjustments to cover that stabilization fund, and we were able to do that within like a $3,000, $4,000 range. We were that close to it, and that's why the new gas stabilization number is so close to zero, because we're right where we need to be on that budgeted savings.
I'm not sure we were supposed to ask questions, but thanks for
No,
thanks for
you
allowing
can
that.
ask questions, and Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, Councilman McGoy, I think the long and short of it is that stabilization fund is separate from the fund balance as well, and it just so happened that when we took that hit, it was about the amount of money that was in the stabilization fund. So overall, the fund itself didn't take much of a hit. Electric, it's a little bit different, but again, we use some fund balance to cover the electric portion, and that will still get used. But we still had our 50% number intact, and we still had, I believe, $2 million above the line of that 50% fund balance. So we're still in good shape in that regard.
Something that just, I guess it nags me, but we can only do this every 6 months, is that correct? So if we do that today and this happens again in a month, that's why I wanna know if that money's there, if, you know.
It is, and then obviously if something occurred over the next 6 months, there's gonna be that ability to review again, and then we'll respond to, if we drop below that amount within our stabilization fund, we drop below that, it takes the peak off of it. Obviously, if there's a significant market change, just like we had to do last fall, we came and asked specific for changes to our rate from the council, which we wouldn't wait for the 6-month mark at that point. If there was an emergency or a major market move, we'd bring it to the council prior to that, so.
Thanks for leading me through that, cause
I'm glad you asked that.
Well, and again, Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, Councilman McGoy, I think that the 6-month number in a different era was, you know, fairly rapid. With the volatility we're seeing in the commodity markets now, it may be that may be something we may want to look at. Do we want to handcuff ourselves and do it every 6 months? I don't know what we gain by that. If you want to have that ability to be flexible, when we do a rate study, maybe we go in and we make an adjustment to that, right? So that you have the ability to manage it. Maybe you do it quarterly, maybe you do it monthly. It all depends, because if you get a big spike, the last one was the December numbers hit and it really blew everything up, and then there was a rapid decline in the spike. So it may be that in the current market, the way that rate study is done and the ability to make those adjustments is more fine-tuned, because we need to be more rapid in our response. So let's build it into the rates to begin with. I'm not sure, and again, this was done a while ago, but again, it probably was reflective of a market that was relatively stable, so it was enough at the time.
it wouldn't hurt to consider that at
Yeah,
least.
I agree.
And just as a side note, staff, we review it on a monthly and a quarterly as a larger group and a small group on a monthly basis. So there's visibility to it throughout staff, almost as that billing comes in and those numbers roll in, we look at it on a regular basis, so. That's all I got.
There we go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did we stay within your guidelines, Abhi? Okay. Now we're going to 16, announcement of current events. Well, I think something that's current, I don't remember introducing our new finance help right here.
Did you want to do introductions?
Sure.
I liked the bio.
Well, hopefully you guys all got the bio in the email. We have Elias Jewin with us. He comes from IPM, the same company that gave us Rob Sweeney. I've worked with him already a week, and it's been really great so far, so I'm looking forward to the next couple months with him.
I thank you, sir, for being here.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Also, our events this weekend were really good. The weather was really good. The attendance was real good, because we had a Oktoberfest and we had a Harvest Fest, 2 separate events, and I think they both went over really good. And there's a lot more events going on coming up. Veterans Day, that ought to be a real good one. And in fact, this young lady who's going to come out on the Field of Dreams magazine, she's one of the ladies, the young ladies who's now a soldier, that went and represented us at the League of Cities twice. This is PFC Madrid, so kudos to her. She's front page, so you got to get that when the time comes, this magazine. But that's really good. They have a Veterans Day stand down, which is really larger this year. It got so big they can't hold it in the Armory anymore. They're going out to the fairgrounds to explain benefits and things that come for and are to veterans. And in fact, this year too, the San Carlos reached out to us because they wanted to know if that involved them. Well, of course it does. And so they've been invited. In fact, we have a commercial on KYAY, their radio station, so I'm real jazzed about that, making contact there. So, other than that, those events are coming up, and I think they're big. Any other announcements of current events? If not, we're moving on to requests for future agenda items. No. All right, that was sweet. So we go to 18, adjournment. Do I have a motion
not-
for adjournment?
He's not here.
Okay, he's not here, so.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Been
Thanks, John.
moved and second.
Thanks, Bill.
All those in favor, we're out of here. Thank you. Bang.